Hello viewers, welcome back to our YouTube channel, KC Accountancy Education Center. Today we want to kickstart our new course of Public Finance Management. It's actually public sector financial management. Public finance management, or what we call the public sector financial management. This is paper. It is a CPA paper. It is a CPA paper of level 3. It is a level 3. Level 3 is paper 13. It's now paper 13. Previously, it was called public sector. It was paper 14 previously, before they changed the syllabus. So we are starting on our series of public finance management, and this is a paper on level 3, as I said, as per our new syllabus of 2023. That is the new syllabus, and I think it would be very good if at all we look at what we are going to cover in terms of the course syllabus, given the fact that we had some major changes in the syllabus. The syllabus of public finance management, they made some changes because as we moved from the previous syllabus to the new syllabus, they made some new changes. So before we embark on our journey for this series of public finance management, even the name was changed. So let's now look at the new syllabus of this paper, public finance management. So if you try to look at of course, the syllabus, the detailed syllabus, you can pick it from the detailed syllabus of the year 2023. Specifically, we can look at, you can check our website, you can also check our Telegram channel to be able to download the syllabus. You can check out we have 2 websites and a Telegram channel. You can put in cafeocharles.com in Google. Even if you just search for Cafe Charles, you go in Google, you type in Cafe Charles, you look at that website, or we can use our KC Accountancy Education Center.cafeocharles.com. These are our 2 syllabuses where we can actually go to and we check. We can we can be able to get the materials, and we'll be able to access the question papers and other materials that are relevant to different courses. This is our marketplace. This one, number 2, for the school, KC Accountancy Education Center. This is the personal. It's just a subdomain. This is the main website, but this one is just a subdomain of this. The main domain is my own name, personal. So you can go there to be able to download the course syllabuses for different papers, either on level 1, level 2, level 3, and so on, plus other information that you'll be able to access from that point. So once you are done with that, we want to go through, but I'm going to be writing up some few things that we are going to be looking at. Now, as we try to look at the detailed syllabus of this paper, the public finance management, we can see that we have quite a number of topics, and I think there are about 17 topics that we will actually cover. And of course, we will see from the introduction to public sector or to public finance management. We shall have, of course, to understand what public sector is all about. What is public sector? Before we look at the accounting of the public sector, we need to first understand what public sector is all about. But as I said before, they made some changes in the syllabus before they introduced the new syllabus. This paper was one of the courses that were affected by the changes or by the previous syllabus. It was affected in the sense that previously they used to call it public sector accounting, public sector accounting and reporting. And by then it was paper 14. But now they changed it to what we call public finance management. And now it is paper 13. So it was changed from the public sector accounting and reporting to public finance management. So they just switched from accounting. They only switched from accounting and reporting, and they put more of what we call financial management. But this financial management is not within the private sector, it is within the public sector. So it is more or less into the financial management part of it than the accounting and the reporting of the different things that are being done in the public sector. And if you try to look at the two course outlines or the details of these two papers from the previous paper 14 to the new paper 13, if you try to look at the details, of course you will see that there are few things that were changed, but these few things, these are vital things that they changed into this course outline. If at all you try to look at those two course details, and I'll try as much as possible to be able to elaborate some of the to talk about some of the things that were in the previous syllabus that were removed in the new syllabus. And the implication, of course, there are some of the things that were removed, but we shall find ourselves having to study them because we will need them as we are doing some of the things. And I will be able to talk about some of the things that were changed in this introduction. So this is just part 1 of the introduction, but as by the time we finish the introductory part of it, we shall be able to understand what are the things that were changed from the previous paper 14 to the new paper 13. Therefore, as I was saying, we have to define what we call public sector. So we have to know how it differs from the private sector, because we know that there are two sectors. We have the public and then the private. Of course, we also have the other non-profit. But most of the things that we are focusing on is the public. This is something that is a bit different from what we've been looking at. So we want to see how the public sector differs from the private sector. And maybe, of course, the other civil sector, all the what we call the non-profit making organizations, you will find that they are somehow similar to these public. They are not public sector, but the way they operate is a little bit similar to that of the public sector. So those are the three sectors that we have: the private sector, the public sector, and then the civil society sector, or the non-profit making organizations. But also, as I said, we will be looking at the changes that were made in that old syllabus of paper 14 vis-a-vis the things that we need to look at as far as paper 13 is concerned. But for those who did paper 14, because we have the reason as why we are trying to get to the point of what has been changed from the usual things that we knew to the new syllabus is because we have those maybe that did some papers but they didn't pass. Maybe they have taken some time without sitting exams, and maybe they had studied this old paper 14. So for those who did paper 14 previously and maybe they didn't pass, or for those who studied but they didn't do exams, you need to see, you need to know what are the things that really changed from the real things that you had studied earlier. So but one thing that you need to understand, for those that who had studied this paper 14, of course you don't need to know much of what has been changed. For those who never studied, you don't need to know what really changed, because you are not going to be doing the other previous papers. But for those who had done it, you need to know what has changed so that you can be able to leave some information outside. You focus on the things that we are going to be looking at in this new paper. Because if you are just new to this public finance management and you need to really go deep into what changed, of course, for those who didn't attempt or who didn't study paper 14, you'll be maybe, because when you try to look at some of the past papers, you'll find that some standards were set, and this time around we are not going to be having those numbers. But once you look at the past paper numbers, you'll be able to see what has been examined. So it's something you can pick. You don't pick much interest in it because it will get you confused. Just understand that the key things that really changed and what you focus on the new things that we are going to be talking about. So for those that are just doing paper 13 for the first time, you have never had maybe any lecture on paper 14, you have no problem. Just stick with me. We shall be able to go through the different aspects. But those who had studied on paper 14 and those, because there are those who are not studying, but they are watching. But for those maybe who had studied paper 14 and they are just reminding themselves, you just need to know the key things that were really changed so that you can be able to reflect on what has been included and those that have been excluded from the new syllabus. Also, I will be highlighting some of the new things that came into this new syllabus and what was removed, because what changed is not so much, although it is something that is significant, about 40%, 40 or 35%, or maybe 45% was changed from the previous paper 14, and it is very different from what we had from that paper 14. Because if you try to look at what are some of the things that they removed in the previous paper 14, we used to have very many ifrs. We shall learn what ifrs are, but we had very many of them that were in that paper 14, because paper 14 was basically on accounting and reporting. That's why there were many standards. These ifrs, these are the standards. There were many standards. Some were removed and others were retained. So we shall be covering those that were remained, that they retained, and we shall also look at some of those that were excluded or were removed from the syllabus. So in our introduction, it's all about knowing what public sector is all about. We need to understand what public sector financial management is all about. At first, you need to understand what a private sector is. 2, you need to understand public sector financial management. What is it? So once you understand what public sector financial management is all about, but what we know is that it borrows a little from what we studied in financial management, because it is more of a financial management, how we manage finances, but from the point of the public sectors. The other one, we looked at financial management, but from the point of private sectors, where we had shareholders and all that, where we had owners, where we had limited companies and public limited companies. But here we want to look at the private sector, the government. It is more from the state-owned enterprises and so on. So we need to understand what public sector is all about, and we also need to understand the public sector financial management, because we left the point of public sector accounting and reporting, that was paper 14, to more so, or to dive in deeper into the public sector financial management. So that's what of course, it borrows, as I said, it borrows some little knowledge from what we know in financial management, what we know in financial accounting, and also what we know from the financial reporting, because we are going to be talking about some standards. By the time you are doing this paper, you must have done financial reporting on level 2 or financial management on level 2. So we are borrowing some information, even the financial accounting on level 1. We are borrowing some information from some of those papers that we did. So some of the things that we are going to be borrowing are because we also have users, even here in public sector, we are going to be having users of financial statements of the private sector. Once we have users of these financial statements of these public sectors, we also have to look at the information that is needed, or the information needs. We have users of these public sector financial statements, but what do they need from these financial statements? That is the information needs of the different users. And we shall also need to cover other aspects from within the introductory point of view. So we need to understand just a little bit of what a public sector is and public sector financial management. Also, we shall have to understand the levels or the categories of the public sector entities. Of course, you understand that when you talk about the public sector entities, we know we are talking about the ministries like, let's say, Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Water, those different ministries, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Internal Affairs. Those are the different ministries that I'm talking about. So we may have the ministries, we may have agencies. Of course, we have agencies and departments. Some of them are just departments. Some of these agencies, we may have DPP, Directorate of Public Prosecution. We have, they are different departments. They are URA, Uganda Revenue Authority. They may be agencies, departments, or authorities. So they are different departments that have been assigned on specific items. We may also have local governments, district local governments. I know everyone knows what a district local government is all about. So we may have, because each district has a local government, we may have the statutory bodies. These are bodies, statutory bodies, these are bodies that have been formed by the Act of Parliament, like the Institute of Certified Public Accountants. If you look at the Institute of Certified Public Accountants website and you look at how it came into existence, you'll find that it's a professional course that came into existence after enacting some laws by the Parliament. So there are very many. We may also have companies that are public in nature, Like if you look at the new vision, if you look at the public universities, and so many other aspects. So we shall have to understand all of these items. But now, the way we are going to understand some of these items is from the academic. We have to make sure that we put, because we all know what are some of these things that we are talking about here. The ministries, the agencies, the local governments, statutory bodies, and others. We all know them. If I talk about URA, someone knows. But we need to put it in the context of the academic environment. We need to understand if you are being asked on it, what are you going to write? So we are going to put them into the context of the academic environment. So that's the part that we'll take into the introductory part. It will be able to give us what we need to know. But the other thing that will also be within the introduction, the introduction will be the regulatory and institutional framework. The regulatory and institutional framework. You know, just like the way we can look at the conceptual framework, it is just, these are just guidelines, the regulatory and the institutional framework that are governing those different organizations. So, for those regulatory and the institutional framework, especially for those who did paper 14, because as I said, I have to be able to elaborate some of the few things. The introduction, for those who did paper 14, the introduction is still the same. The introduction of paper 14, the previously paper 14, is still the same as the introduction for paper 13. The introduction is still the same. You have to look at the public sector. You have to look at the public sector, maybe financial management. Of course, the other side, you may be looking at the accounting. As you account and you report, you are also trying to manage. So, the introduction is the same for both paper 13 and paper 14. So nothing much has really changed from the introduction. But as I said, although they included in something, because remember in paper 14, it wasn't so much into looking at the financial management aspect. Because paper 14, as I said, was all about public sector accounting and reporting. And now the paper 13 is just public sector financial management, meaning we are so much into the financial management bit of the public sector, other than the accounting and the reporting bit. So that's one of the significant change within the introduction. But as I said, the introduction did not change so much, apart from just introducing in the aspect of public financial management. So the regulatory framework. If you are to look at the regulatory and institutional framework, we are going to look at that in the next video. This is just part 1 of the introduction to public sector financial management. So let's meet in the next video as we are talking about the regulatory and institutional framework. We want to understand what it is. Remember, we are still introducing the topic. We are still looking at the different things that we are going to go with, like the the detailed analysis of the course outline, so that we see what is there, what has been removed, to be able to put you in a context of knowing what we are going to cover. So let's meet in the next video as we are talking about the regulatory and institutional framework.